Good afternoon. This is a sound check. We will start in 1 minute. I'm Carlos Garcia, Product Manager for Payroll Applications here at Accountantsworld, and your host for this webinar. This webinar broadcasts over PC speakers, or you may use our teleconference number, which you got when you first joined the webinar. Okay, there's a lot of material to cover today, so we're going to dig right in. I'm going to get started, and hopefully, respecting your time, keep it within 1 hour. So our outline for today, it's a streamlined process to make the year-end and early 2018 go smoother for payroll relief processes using Payroll Relief. For most of us, the year-end process is pretty standard. You close out the old year and you start the new year. We may have been doing this for several years. What this webinar will cover is the processes and the tools available in Payroll Relief that will greatly assist you in performing the year-end task efficiently and accurately. Closing out the year, we will look at year-end payroll processing and compliance. We will also look at archiving and starting the new year. Before we dive into the subject matter of this webinar, I would like to highlight some of the major enhancements we added this past year. In summary, though, our emphasis has been on improving processes. So in light of this, we have been working very hard to streamline process to improve and increase your efficiency and your bottom line. Here are some of the changes. With firm as reporting agent, you are now compliant with IRS definition of reporting agent and are in control of the process. The new Manage 8655 screen allows you to manage all your clients' Forms 8655. There's an e-file only option, as requested by many, which provides the ability to e-file forms without having to submit an ACH application. The added risk analysis checklist provides a due diligence checklist for all your new clients. We've added 1099 batch processing, which allows you the same efficiency during the batch processing of W-2s. Client notification emails have been expanded to include more canned emails and to effectively communicate with all your clients with one batch email. You may now email the employee portal URL to a selected group of employees. Here again, another time-saving batch function instead of mailing the URL one employee at a time. The master client login has been expanded to include the ability to set up permissions. Okay. So for those of you that are not familiar, the master client login, which was introduced last year as a feedback from a lot of users, let's say you have a business that has several locations. One that comes to mind, let's say a franchise, like a McDonald's franchise, and they all have different EINs. But you want one login to access all those McDonald's franchises. Okay, so you can set up a master client login, which would only access those clients that you assign to that client login. Previously, the master client login inherited the same client permissions, or better yet, the same permissions as the client. What we have added now is the ability to set up different permissions for the master client login. Okay, so that's a big improvement right there. We also have now the swipe clock API. Previously, this was a two-step process where you downloaded the file and then you uploaded the file to swipe clock. Now it's seamless integration with the click of a button at the payroll processing time. Archiving. As many of you know, archiving your client's data is very important. Payroll Relief offers numerous opportunities and ways to archive your payroll's data. It is the only program where archiving function is part of the program. Most recently, we added the ability to archive in batch mode quarterly compliance forms for all your clients. There is also a screen to batch archive W-2s. And lastly, there is a new feature that allows employees as well as staff members to upload documents such as a W-4 or the W-9. For those employees, this would be automatically archived. And miscellaneous, a couple of other new things that we added. We added a new nearest banking day option for non-banking pay dates. There is now a separate permission for the Affordable Care Act forms. Added support of the New York State paid family leave deduction. We now support statutory employee, which is an employee that's exempt from federal withholding. However, there are federal taxable wages on their W-2. And also there's support for the new W-2 Box 12 code FF for qualified small employer HRAs. So we ask, what time is it? Well, other than 3:08, in the payroll industry, it is year end. And we hear about this a lot during this time. There are educational seminars, webinars, and pre-printed material are abundant regarding year end and its importance. What is so important? And for who is it important? Well, perhaps the most important aspect of year end is a little document that every employer must carefully prepare and provide to its employees and the Social Security Administration by January 31st, 2018. Every individual that works and receives compensation needs this document to file their individual tax returns. The Social Security Administration shares this information with the IRS. Yes, it's W-2 time. This webinar will focus around the correct preparation and efficient processing of W-2s using Payroll Relief. What is great news is that most of the year-end work is done by Payroll Relief. What you need to worry about is collecting data you don't have and getting it into the system for the proper generation of the W-2s. So in closing out 2017, basically there's two phases really. One is closing out 2017, which covers payroll processing, like bonus, commission, end of year payrolls, fringe benefits. We see some here listed: health insurance, 2% shareholders, third-party sick pay, cost of employer-provided health insurance, and so forth. Also correction payrolls and wage adjustments. And then there's year-end compliance. Your obviously W-2 is the most important, and 1099 miscellaneous, Form 940, the Affordable Care Act forms 1094C and 1095C, and lastly, the most important thing of all, after you're all done, is archiving all the work that you have done. The second phase of this, rolling into 2018, as the webinar's name suggests, is starting 2018 on the right track, which is accomplished by reviewing all employee and employer information. So we'll take a look at that as well. So since the most important item is the preparation and generation of Forms W-2 for employees, we are providing the following checklist, which we will cover in detail. Okay, so first thing is we need to obtain fringe benefit information from employers. Any year-end bonuses and commissions, we need to enter these into the payroll program. We need to reconcile. Okay, there's a couple of key reconciliations that we will cover. Also, there's employers with tipped employees. And then we will talk about verifying employee information, such as Social Security numbers, addresses, and names. Then we will process, view, and print the W-2s and discuss how we deliver those W-2s to the employees or release them to the employee portal. And then we'll file the W-2s. And lastly, we will archive the W-2s. Okay, so that's our checklist for W-2s for this presentation. So obtain fringe benefit information. Well, a new feature introduced early this year under batch processing are client notifications, which provide the ability for you to send a blast email to your clients. Extremely useful feature, as we will see as I go along, especially during this critical time of the year. You simply select the clients that you wish to send the notification to. You review the number of clients to be emailed. You may create your own custom email or use one of our canned emails. The total number of clients or recipients is displayed here again on this screen. And then you send an email, for example, to request any benefit information to be included in the W-2s, such as, okay, so we see here we have the email, request for benefit information for W-2s, and the email will say, we are preparing forms W-2 for your employees and require the following information for you to complete the processing of these forms. And it has a list of all the fringe benefits, or most of the common ones anyway, and you're done. Okay. Other payments that could be taxable or partially taxable and must be reported on the employee's W-2s are the following list here: personal use of employer vehicles, employee discounts. If you own a retail business, if the discount is greater than 20%, that excess could be taxable. Club memberships, a very important one is group term life insurance. Some moving expenses, not very often. Educational assistance in excess of $5,250. Adoption assistance, any awards and prizes, okay, depending on the nature of the award or the reason for the award and the amount of the award, could be there could be some taxable income there as well to be reported. Employee loans at a lower than fair interest or fair market value interest. Jury duty pay, any wages paid after death, advances, and employer paid taxes. Okay, so if you gross up a check and you pick up the employee's Social Security and Medicare taxes, that also becomes income to the employee. So pretty much everything is taxable unless there's an exception by the IRS. And that's where our accountant hat comes in. So we have payrolls for year end, such as bonus and commissions, very common this time of the year. A quick note on these payrolls: it is not unusual for companies to process direct deposits that greatly exceed payroll amounts for which their electronic services application was approved. We strongly recommend that you do one of the following if you have a much larger than usual direct deposit for a payroll. You can change the pay date or approve the payroll one day earlier than normal so that the payroll is within your normal, you can split the payrolls using different pay dates, regular payroll and bonus payroll, so that the payroll is within your normal dollar limit. If neither of the above options is acceptable to the employer and they need to process direct deposits on their normal pay date, you can wire transfer the funds to Accountantsworld no later than 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the banking day before the employer's pay date. Okay. Very important, if you do happen to come across the situation, the program will prompt you with these options. And again, I must reiterate, only wire transfers are acceptable. You also use additional payrolls to correct any payroll in the past. And you must keep in mind that you can no longer run a standard payroll for 2017 once you have processed a payroll in 2018, okay, or a payroll with a 2018 pay date. In other words, if you're entering 2017 payroll, once in 2018, you can only use additional payroll. Okay. The system, as we see here on the screen, will prompt you in this case. Okay, the reason for that is because Payroll Relief is a live payroll program, so standard payrolls are either the current date or in the future. Anything in the past will need to be done as an additional payroll manual checks. So let's talk about entering fringe benefits. Fringe benefits are entered using an additional payroll. Okay, so we see here on the screen, there is a group term life insurance, 50,000 K over entry field. You can also earmark the transaction as third-party sick pay, and you see the entry field for third-party sick pay. And also there's fringe benefits such as health insurance, 2% shareholder, HSA employer contributions, employer paid health. All these are under the fringe benefit radio button when you select additional payroll and you go to the by paycheck tab and use the regular third-party sick pay and fringe benefit radio buttons at the top to indicate what kind of transaction you're entering. Okay. You can also add a second check, as you can see here on the bottom, if you need to do additional items. Entering wage adjustments. Adjustments can be made before filing any fourth quarter or annual form or through February 28th, whichever comes first. Okay. W-2s will automatically be recalculated to reflect any adjustment. However, we recommend that you review the forms to ascertain that your adjustment is what you want it to be. One example of a wage adjustment that I like to give is FUTA exempt. So let's say you had an employee and you accidentally marked them as FUTA exempt when they weren't, or vice versa. Okay, you would come to this screen, you would select the employee, you would select the quarter, and then the system will tell you what's in the database as far as taxable wages for FUTA. So if you see down the line here, you have FUTA taxable subject wages and you have FUTA tax wages. So in the case of the exempt employee, that would be 0. And what you would need to do is enter the revised amount, which is what they earned to date, and then the taxed wages would be subject to the wage base of $7,000, and that's how you would make that correction. Okay, so this is to adjust, as the title implicates, wage fields. Okay, taxable wage fields, and you can see the list of all the taxable wage fields on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, if you need to make an adjustment to a particular payroll, perhaps you are required to file Schedule B, and you need to get specific and not just by quarter, you may click on the Pay Date radio button, and a drop-down will be populated with the pay dates for the selection. Okay, so instead of quarter, you can say pay date, and you will have the pay dates listed in the drop-down and adjust a particular payroll. So I know I'm going a little fast. We talked about entering fringe benefits. We talked about the adjustments. Now comes a very important part of year-end, which is reconciliations. And perhaps an extremely important and industry standard reconciliation is that of the quarterly forms 941 and Form W-3. So illustrated here, I'm using the line 2 of the quarterly Federal 941, which is federal wages, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and we see to the right the total is $651,063, and that number must match box 1, wages, tips, and other compensation of your W-3. Okay, very important that this reconciliation is done. Some states also have annual reconciliation forms that perform this same reconciliation. If for some reason you do not have the fourth quarter 941 yet available, or you are performing this reconciliation early, perhaps before your last payroll, you may also use the federal taxes report for the fourth quarter. Okay, so as we see here, the first column, federal wages, 126,771, which matches our previously illustrated fourth quarter. So Payroll Relief program does the work for you at the bottom of the W-2 employee summary report, which we're looking at here on screen. Notice that the only acceptable difference are the employer portion of the Social Security and the Medicare taxes. Okay, so this year-end payroll reconciliation you will find at the very end of the W-2 employee summary report. As I mentioned before, most states have an annual reconciliation form. Most of these are electronically filed. You see here on the screen a table of all the states for which we support electronic filing of state W-2s. For these states, you will need to view the federal forms W-2 before filing the state annual reconciliation form. Let's talk about employers with tipped employees. As many of you know, Payroll Relief supports employers with tipped employees. The program also tracks and reports on the W-2 Box 12 uncollected Social Security and Medicare on cash tips, codes A and B. As you see here on screen, I showed you a section of the W-2. A year-end compliance item faced by some employers with tipped employees are allocated tips. For those large restaurant establishments, they usually use allocated tips. Payroll Relief does support that. If your restaurant client is required to allocate tips, which feeds box 8 of the W-2, under the compliance menu, there's a screen for allocated tips. You select the allocation method, whether it's hours worked, receipts, or agreement. In most cases, it's receipts. Okay. Then you select the IRS approved rate, if applicable, which is usually 8%. And in my example, you enter the gross receipts. So the period gross receipts for the year is $400,000. Okay, and the system does the calculations. At the very bottom of the screen, you have a list of all your employees. You would enter the receipts allocable to each employee, and the system will calculate the allocated tips in the last column. And I want to take note of Joe Bartender's allocated tips of $2,936.25, and then when we go to the W-2, voila, there it is, box 8, automatically populated by the system. Okay, let's move on to our next W-2 item, which is verifying employee information. Social Security numbers. Payroll Relief verifies all employee Social Security numbers with the Social Security number verification system. We'll touch upon this a little bit more later. Other verification that you need to do is employee address, city, state, and zip code. For these, Payroll Relief provides an exception report here at the top. For these and other items, missing addresses are a major problem when filing certain state W-2s. Okay, this information really should be gathered as part of your onboarding process, but if for some reason or other it was overlooked, the exceptions report will let you know, as you see here. Okay, whether the state code's missing, the zip code is missing, whether the city's missing, whether there's an EIN missing. So any missing information you will find in the exceptions report. Continuing with verifying employee information, you may also view the W-2 employee summary report with all W-2 information or a customizable employee listing report. So let's take a look at those. Okay. Here we are in the compliance reports. The very last report is the W-2 employee summary report for this year. And this is the W-2 employee summary report. Now this pretty much is a summary of all the W-2 information. Okay, so you do have the Social Security number, first 5 digits are masked. You have the employee's name, address, and you have the amounts for every box on the W-2. Okay, and again, worth mentioning is at the end of this report, you have your annual reconciliation. Now, if you do not wish to have amounts, then you may use a customizable employee listing report under the employee reports. Now you can see here there's several check boxes that I have checked. Okay, and this is what the report looks like, no amounts. Okay, so you can give this to a staff member to confirm with the HR records or whatever the case may be where you have this information to confirm that it is correct. But we're talking about you doing this work. I really think we really need the employers to verify this information. After all, it's their employees, and they have this information readily available. So here's another example where you can use the batch email feature to have your clients help you verify W-2 information. We have a canned email, verify employee listing report data. Just select it and send it to all your clients, and they'll get the report attached that we just saw, and then they can review the information. Okay, I mentioned before that Payroll Relief does verify every single Social Security number with the Social Security Administration. Okay, failed Social Security numbers are listed in a number of places for your convenience. Okay, they're listed on the dashboard under employer warnings. They are listed on the employee setup screen, on the employee list screen, and at the firm level for all clients under the firm administration client activity. If you have set up employees with a temporary or bogus Social Security number, now is the time to enter a valid number. Okay. W-2s filed with invalid Social Security numbers are subject to review by the Social Security Administration and or the Internal Revenue Service. An employer may receive a notice, or in some cases, a penalty. When e-filing state W-2s, it also creates problems and or rejections. Okay, some states are a little bit more strict than the federal, than the Social Security Administration. It will not allow us to e-file any forms with invalid Social Security numbers. So this is why we must verify Social Security numbers. Email notification time again. To make it easy for you to follow up on these, we have added a new canned email for invalid or missing Social Security numbers. Again, select from the list and email the client. Okay, this is what the email looks like, and it does have a list of the employees that have failed for proper follow-up. So again, as you are witnessing, and you will continue to witness throughout this presentation, the batch client notification feature is just simply awesome and extremely useful and efficient. Okay, what other payroll program provides you this efficiency? I don't think there's any out there. We need to understand when the W-2s and the 1099s are generated and saved in the system. Okay, but really, you don't need to do anything. As soon as you process your first 2018 payroll, the program generates the W-2s. So you're probably thinking, well, what if I don't process a 2018 payroll? Well, should you not be processing a 2018 payroll, the W-2s are generated when you access the compliance W-2 screen. Done. No other action item is necessary. Your W-2s are now generated and ready for review, printing, and filing and distribution. Okay, when you do your first payroll, the system will let you know. Also, when you visit the screen, the system will let you know that your W-2s and 1099s are being generated. So, let's talk about some important dates. It was new last year, not anymore. Okay, the due date is January 31st to submit W-2s to employees as well as the Social Security Administration. Same holds true for any 1099 miscellaneous recipients that have Box 7 non-employee compensation amounts, and the 1095-C is also due to the employees on January 31st. Okay. The Affordable Care Act forms paper filings are still due on February 28th, and the electronic filing is April 2nd. Okay. There is a 30-day extension for filing W-2s. However, be warned that employers must file Form 8809, application for extension of time to file informational returns, and, more importantly, be approved by the IRS. And approval this year is only given in specific situations. For example, natural disasters. So word has it, the IRS was more lenient in providing approval last year because the new deadline, the due date was new at the time. Not this year. This year they're going to be stricter, and again, just granting extensions in cases of natural disasters or some extraneous situations. Many states have followed this due date change for their annual reconciliation forms and W-2 copies. Okay, actually, there's only 6 states that still remain with a February due date for their annual reconciliations. And very quickly, in case you're in one of them, Hawaii, Michigan, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. But no need to worry, Payroll Relief has been updated with all these new due dates. Everything is already done for you in Payroll Relief. All you have to do, once again, is enter the additional information that you need to be reported on the W-2. Okay, keep in mind, and I need to really stress this point, the late filing penalties for W-2s are very stiff. Okay, shown here is a table that is applicable to small businesses, less than $5 million in revenue. Okay, this is directly from the IRS website. On the left-hand side, you see the reasons, okay, of failed to time of incurring the penalty. Either you failed to file timely, you failed to include all information required to be shown on the W-2, include incorrect information on the W-2, and so forth. And on the right-hand side, okay, it's $50 per W-2 if you correctly file within 30 days of the due date. Okay, and the maximum penalty is $187,500 per year. But if you have 10 employees, that's $500 in penalties. Okay, and it gets even worse if you file after 30 days. It's $100 per W-2 if you file after 30 days, which would probably be like more of March 2nd. Between March 2nd and August 1st, it's $100, and then after August 1st, it's $260 per W-2. So again, I mean, the proof is right here, and I did not make this up. This is straight from the IRS. Let's talk about delivering W-2s to the employees. Perhaps the most practical way is through the employee portal. When you release the forms W-2 and 1099 miscellaneous to the employee portal, both employees and contractors may view and print these forms. Okay, so shown here is the employee portal, and we can see that the employee can select the year and they can see their W-2, as well as print their W-2 employee instructions. Employees may consent to electronic delivery in the employee portal. So here we have the profile page of the employee portal. So it has some personal information, employment information, payroll information. As I mentioned before, the employee can upload their W-4 or I-9, okay, and tax information. Okay, and at the very bottom, right-hand side, form distribution, W-2 electronic consent. They can say yes or no, and basically what they get is this pop-up that tells them exactly what's going on. You can check the box, I consent to receive my W-2 wage and tax statement, copies version 4 up, this employee portal in lieu of paper copy. Okay, this gets logged in the employee portal and also taken into consideration within Payroll Relief when releasing the W-2s to the employee portals. Okay, this is the employee's W-2, the employer's, W-2 screen. So it's under compliance, W-2 for the employer. It shows all the different copies of the W-2. You select form W-3 at the bottom of the screen. Okay, when filed, it shows you the date filed under copy A. Okay, notice here it says filed January 19, 2018, even though we're not there yet. but that's just for illustration purposes, and it will show you the, again, on copy A, okay? And that's it. So you select the W-3 and you select the action item up in the upper right-hand corner, whether it's print, e-file, record, or email, and you're done. Piece of cake, okay? So you want to do this by employer? Well, here it's done by employer basis, but what if you have 50 or 100 or more employers? It can be quite a tedious task to go employer by employer. So the icing on the cake is batch processing. Okay. With Payroll Relief W-2 batch processing, you can perform all these action items. Okay, you can print, you can email, you can release W-2s to the employee portal, you can e-file, all in batch. Okay, again, simply select the clients by checking the appropriate checkbox in the column select, and then select the action item. Keep in mind that due to file size restrictions, the total selected W-2s per batch may have to be limited. Now, for example, if let's say you have 300 clients, we might recommend that you do 3 batches of 100 employers at a time. But nonetheless, you can still process in multiple batches, all from one screen. Here again is evident the power of Payroll Relief. All your W-2 processing in batch, in one screen. The action items are logically laid out for you in the upper right-hand corner. View, print, email or release, e-file, and new this year is the archive. And you're done with your W-2s. Now, the processing of 1099 miscellaneous and the 1096 works in the same manner as the W-2s. Okay, so you, under the compliance for the employer, you have 1099 screen. You check the box at the bottom for the federal 1096, and you select the action item, whether it's print or e-file or record. Okay. However, new this year, we have added batch processing of 1099s. Just like you have for W-2s. Okay, I know there are some of you out there with many 1099 miscellaneous recipients or contractors, if you will, that really appreciate this screen. So enjoy it. Efficiency at its maximum. Okay, so with that subject, we close out on the W-2s. And let us move on. A very popular and somewhat complicated annual form is Form 940. It should be reviewed carefully. Due to the credit allowed for unemployment taxes paid to the state, it is necessary that you ensure that all your state unemployment payments have been recorded and that all applicable state unemployment forms have been filed. This will ensure that the proper credit is calculated. Okay. If you have multiple states, even more important. The line 10 has a worksheet in the instructions, and should this be applicable, in other words, if there's a number, an amount on line 10, the program will print the worksheet along with Form 940 to explain how it came up with that number. FUTA credit reduction. Thankfully, a dying topic. Many years ago, I remember, not many, a few years ago, I remember there was up to 12 states subject to this. Currently, for 2017, the only state is California, which is supported by Payroll Relief. The Virgin Islands are still there. And the rate is 2.1, has been increased from 1.8 to 2.1. Okay. So the question is, how is Payroll Relief handling this credit reduction? Well, Payroll Relief will automatically schedule the FUTA credit reduction payment. No need to worry. It will all be done. The payment will be scheduled and taken so that the Form 940 can be e-filed. Let's talk about full-time equivalents. Payroll Relief offers a full-time equivalence report. Okay, under management reports. The report can be run for last month, last quarter, last year, year to date, or a specific range of dates. When you select a specific range of dates, it will start with the first day of that month and ends with the last day of the month where you set to. Okay. It takes the total service hours per employee, limited or adjusted to 120 hours per month, divided by the number of months in which the service hours reached 120. So let's take a look at that report for widget RS. Okay, so we see here the employees listed, their service hours for the year 2017, the adjusted hours, and then the full-time months and the part-time hours. Okay, at the very bottom, it says full-time equivalent equals total adjusted hours divided by 120 times 12 months is 6.47, and we are instructed by the IRS that we need to go down to the nearest whole number, which is 6. So we have 6 full-time employees equivalents. And then the report at the bottom explains what each column is: service hours, adjusted hours, full-time months, and part-time hours. Affordable Care Act Form 1094-C. This is the screen under compliance for the Affordable Care Act forms. Any data available in Payroll Relief automatically flows to the 1094-C and the 1095-C. However, due to the nature of the information being collected and reported, which is mostly HR, you will need to enter much of the information. This screen provides entry for the required information on the 1094-C. Provided in Payroll Relief's resources under links is an IRS link to the Affordable Care Act tax provisions for the employer. This next screen provides entry for the required information on each employee's 1095-C. Okay. There is a default code for coverage at the top for all employees. And for your convenience, there are links to documents with the code descriptions in the upper right-hand section of the screen. Now, new this year, Payroll Relief offers a separate client permission for these Affordable Care Act screens. As some of you requested, the client really can perform this data entry, and now they can do so without having access to other parts of compliance. So there's a specific permission under client permissions just to access these screens and enter the information that they need to enter. Okay, so this brings us to our last topic today as far as year end, and one of utmost importance, which is archiving your payroll data. Okay, whether it's to the cloud or to your local desktop, it is imperative that you archive all payroll data. I can't say how many times we have been asked, need a copy of my 2013 W-2s. And our first question is, did you mark them as recorded in the program, and did you archive them? Okay. Just think about it for a moment. You know, we have been growing exponentially over the years. We've been in the payroll business for many years, and it's impracticable for us to maintain all the data for all the previous years. Okay, we are a cloud-based application, and therefore we encourage and re-encourage our customers to use our archive functions to archive the data so that they can have this information readily available when needed by the taxing authorities, audits, and so forth. Okay, so let's talk about archiving in Payroll Relief. Okay, within each key area of payroll, Payroll Relief offers the ability to archive data, either automatically like with the payroll report set when you process a payroll, or manually, like when you archive your payroll checks after running the payroll. Okay, there's archive features in tax, in compliance, as well as in reports. So let's take a close look at that, because this is a very important matter. Now, understanding how important this archival function is, this year, Payroll Relief now comes with an archived data tool. Okay, so if you notice on the upper right of your screen, there's a new cloud icon. It's archive data. Okay, we want to help you archive. This new archive feature automatically archives your payroll report set with every approved payroll after the checks have been printed. You may also manually archive the checks. You can archive the quarterly forms, and you can archive reports. Okay, so again, here you have another awesome feature included, no extra cost, with Payroll Relief that I believe no other program offers, an archive data tool. So if for any reason you choose to archive individually from the tax form screen on a per client basis, you do have that ability. So if you're in a particular client, you're on the compliance tax form screen, just select status all, you'll have the ability to archive just for that employer. Better yet, and again, new this year, you may archive quarterly forms for all or a selected group of clients in batch. Another time-saving feature brought to you by Payroll Relief. Simply click the select box for all the clients. The program lets you know how many forms each client has and the total forms selected at the very bottom, and then click archive, and you're done. Okay, that easy. The same with reports. Okay, I mentioned that we automatically archive the payroll set report, but notice that you have the ability to create 2 more custom report sets. Okay, and one that's highly recommended is a compliance report set. Okay, and you can archive these reports by clicking on the archive button on the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Okay, you can do this with report sets as well as individual reports. There's also the archive function. So any report you can archive. You can build reports. Here's the report set, and the checkbox indicates what reports I want as part of that set. And there are 2 other reports which can be exported to Excel, okay, for further editing, and which we highly recommend that you manually archive. The first seen here is the ACH transactions report, which should be done at least annually. Okay, this report lists all the ACH transactions for the year and provides an excellent resource for all electronic payments. Okay, again, very simple. Just select the from and to for the year. You can say all, okay, or if you just for whatever reason want just the tax payments, you can do that. And just export it to Excel. You can further edit it there, and then you can take that Excel file and archive it. Okay. The second one is the payroll register export under payroll processing. For those of you that want to keep your client's payroll data, everything in the payroll register, this export will provide that information. Okay. Export to Excel, manipulate the data at will, and then archive. Okay, so we closed out 2017. What's next? Well, we're starting year 2018. So for employers, we want to look at tax information, contact information, pay schedules, 401k options. For employees and contractors, same thing, taxes, deductions and garnishments, and whether they're still active or inactive. Automatic year-end processes within Payroll Relief, okay? Again, no action required by you, but you need to understand how the system works. These occur upon processing your first payroll of 2018. Okay. If you have any deductions or garnishment goals, if the goal has not been met, the system will adjust the new goal amount for the new year. If the goal has been met in the previous year, then it marks the deduction inactive. Same with paid time off. Okay, if the rollover is on a calendar year basis, it will make any adjustment if necessary based on your maximum carryover. And if the accrual period is per year, it will accrue the paid time off for 2018. Okay, keep in mind, very important, that the period end date of that payroll must be in 2018 in order for it to accrue the 2018 PTO. Okay. Again, another function that Payroll Relief does automatically for you. Employer setup in 2018. Okay, we want to verify and update any tax information. Federal and tax payment frequencies, we'll talk about that shortly. SUTA tax rates, little asterisks. Federal form to file, whether you are still a 941 versus a 944. You want to verify contact information, pay schedules if they've changed, any 401k options. Perhaps the employer match is changing. Okay. What was the asterisk for? Well, I did mention in the previous screen SUTA rates, okay, and verifying contact and setup information. Well, once again, our batch email feature comes in handy. Send all your clients our canned email requesting SUTA rates for the new year. After you have reviewed all the setup information going forward into 2018, you can also batch email yet another canned email asking clients to verify the employer profile report data. So I can't say it enough. I've touched upon this feature throughout today's webinar. As you have witnessed it, it is one of many powerful tools available in Payroll Relief that allow you to communicate with your clients in batch client emails. I have pointed out the available canned emails. However, you may also add unlimited emails for anything that you want or need. Okay, for example, a newsletter, holiday greetings, a firm announcement, anything. Just add your own custom email and select the users and send it. Okay, federal tax deposit frequency. Let's go over a very important compliance item, which is this. This is the Managed Compliance Report screen, which is accessible from the Payroll Center. Okay. There are a total of 7 different screens here. So for now, I'm just going to concentrate on the federal look back screen because it's important this time of the year. For every employer, there are columns for each quarter's liability in the look back period. Okay. Let's take a look at the first 3 clients. Okay, just a note here, and the program does illustrate that for the 2018, the look back period would be July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. That's why we have quarter 3, quarter 4 of 2016, and quarter 1, quarter 2 of 2017. And we see here that the first 3 clients, okay, first client has a total tax liability in the look back period of $36,000, but their current frequency is semi-weekly. Do they need to be semi-weekly? No, they don't. They could be monthly. It's under $50,000. Okay. The next one is quarterly with form. Well, $49,000 is a lot greater than $2,500, which is your limit for quarterly frequency. That's wrong. So that's a flag that we need to fix that. And then the third one is correctly at semi-weekly because the total tax liability is over $100,000. Okay. This is extremely important because, again, I can't tell you how many times we hear from customers saying that their client or employer received a notice from the IRS with fines and penalties, and it turns out it's because they were using the wrong deposit frequency. Okay, so it is very important that you review the look-back period liability and adjust accordingly to avoid headaches in the future. You want to review employee information for 2018. Okay, so if there's any new W-4 statuses, changes, any exempt status, want to verify deductions and garnishments, you want to verify your paid time off. Remember, PTO accrual in the new year, the period end date must be in the new year. In the employer preferences is the ability for employers and contractors with access to the employee portal to upload their W-4 I-9. Okay, so this is where you check the box to grant that ability. Okay, and as we saw before in the employee portal, they would have an upload button that they can upload this information. And as I mentioned, it is automatically archived. Same thing with the contractors. You want to review their tax information. Are they subject to federal withholding? Are they subject to workers' comp? Did you update the W-9? Verify compensation and any deductions and garnishments. Okay, we're back at the Manage Compliance Report screen. Now, this screen is covered in detail in our Headache-Free Compliance webinar. Okay, so without getting into much detail here, because we're running out of time, here we have another example of tools available in Payroll Relief that allow you to manage every aspect of tax forms compliance. Okay. During the compliance month, these screens are key to effectively and efficiently handling your compliance. Okay, you want to view any e-file exceptions. You want to view any unsuccessful auto e-file, any e-file rejections in general, forms due within the next month, forms that are past due, which is the screen that we're looking at here, very important. Okay, you want to manage your taxes, that screen will show you your federal, state, and local liabilities compared with your payments. And the last one, which we just covered, is the federal look back. Okay, all these are available at the firm level, which means that it lists all your employers in one screen. Okay, another tip that I want to give you, and it's kind of important, is to not use bogus account numbers. Okay, incorrect account number in the state that means that the state cannot allocate the payment correctly, which leads to notices and is sometimes late penalties and just a lot of headaches. Okay, it's a routing number that the state will credit the account of the employer. If you have the wrong information here, it's just going to create problems for you down the road. Okay, so let's wrap up. We spoke about reporting of fringe benefits. We looked at year-end adjustments, procedural year-end compliance. We looked very much in detail on the W-2s and touched upon the 1099 miscellaneous. We talked about delivery of the W-2s via the employee portal. We talked about batch processing of both W-2s and 1099s. Okay, that was the majority of this webinar because it was very important. We also talked about Form 940 and the FUTA credit reduction, and again, a very important aspect of archiving. And lastly, we rolled into 2018 by verifying and reviewing all the setup information for the employees, the employer, and the contractors. And we talked about some tips for common year-end problems. I would like to leave you with the fact that under our resources, under supporting documents, is our year-end planning guide for 2017, which summarizes a lot of the items that I have brought to your attention during this webinar. A reminder that registration for Payroll Relief training webinars are posted on my portal page. I want to thank you for attending and wish you best wishes for a happy and prosperous new year. And may you roll into 2018 smoothly with payroll relief. And I want to thank my colleague Roger Batista, who has been with me online, answering perhaps some of your questions that you have posted. And now we will move into our final stage, which is any additional questions and answers that we can provide. We'll be happy to provide. And once again, thank you for your time. And I hope that this has definitely improved your year-end processing and compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I know you're going to take a quick look in here and look at the questions and absorb after talking for a while. You'll want to take a drink of water and then see what can be addressed. There's a few questions in there, especially, I guess, those things that linger towards the end, and there's a couple that we can answer that I tried answering on the fly earlier. We might touch on it if we have time. If not, we'll get to them afterwards, one-on-one.
Okay, we have a very good question by Allison Popper. Are W-2 exceptions available in a firm report or only client by client?
Yeah.
I guess you just touched upon our next major enhancement. No, at this time it is client by client for the exceptions report, but I can definitely see this being added to our batch processing. There's a question by Jay. When you refer to archiving, is this specifically if you purchase Cloud Cabinet? No. Okay. What I mentioned as one of the enhancements is that Payroll Relief does come with an archived data tool, which, if you wish, it is a limited version of Cloud Cabinet. Okay, Jennifer had a question about the state of Michigan making changes to clients monthly, 50, file it to quarterly or even annual. Is there a way we can send the 50/80 payments monthly, but only file the 50/80 on a quarterly annual basis? I would strongly recommend that you call in and speak to our customer support because you need to speak to the person who handles Michigan. I really don't. I can't get into the details now. If she can help you, then I'll be happy to. I'll have her call you actually, and we can discuss this further in detail. Yes, Allison brought up a good point. I left it out. When you're verifying employee information, you also need to check birth dates for needed change for 401k to a 401k 50 plus. And while we're on that subject, and I don't know, it's some customers have complained that it may be a little confusing. When you do set up a 401k deduction, okay, the system has two types, 401k and 401k 50 plus. Okay, they're mutually exclusive. So if you have somebody who's over 50, you do not need to set both of them up. Okay, you would just set up the 401k 50 plus. The only difference is the system will know that the limit is higher for the 50 plus. Okay, but some people have made the mistake that they set up both and they assign both to an employee who's 50 and over, and then the limits are messed up. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Carlos, there was one user that was asking that when they go into see 2017 information and don't see W3 info yet. I'm imagining that we haven't released that yet to production, right?
No, it hasn't been released. I believe it should be sometime next week that they should be able to see it.
Okay.
But again, we can't start e-filing until after January 1st anyway. So
Anyway, don't matter. It's irrelevant.
right.
They probably wanted to view it, probably for verification or something. Oh, Amanda from Haney and Company. She mentioned, hi Amanda. She mentioned that in your demo, in your presentation, you showed a reference email about IL, Illinois, and she's wondering, maybe get some clarity on that because is that actually something that has to be done this year? Because she thinks that there were some changes made in Illinois that maybe that's not required.
I have no idea what you're referring to. Sorry. Something about Illinois? I don't remember touching anything about Illinois.
One thing she says, we need a reference email that we sent to the client through Accountantsworld. Would we find that? But it was a question earlier from her. Let me see if I can find her here.
Joey McGee had a question. Can you please say again where you can enter the fringe benefits? The fringe benefits are entered in using an additional payroll and the by paycheck module, which is the second tab. So when you enter a payroll, the first entry screen is a spreadsheet, a section-based spreadsheet. But if you go by paycheck, then you get every individual listed one at a time, and it has radio buttons, and you can select there what kind of fringe benefit you want to enter. Rachel, will you be announcing when the Q4 auto e-file period will start running? Yes, we do make announcements every time we're going to be running the auto e-file process. I expect it to be starting on January 16th, the week of the 16th. Usually it's the day after the last payment is made for the monthly tax depositors. So we do have a bank holiday on the 15th, so it might be the 17th that we start running the auto e-file process after those payments of the 16th have been processed. Brenda had a question. Can we create 1099 forms for clients that are non-payroll relief clients? I believe that answer is no. We do have a after-the-fact payroll program that would allow you to generate 1099s and W-2s at will, and that actually covers a lot more different types of 1099s. Don't forget, Payroll Relief only covers the 1099 miscellaneous Box 7 non-employee compensation. After-the-fact payroll covers 6 or 7 different 1099s and all different boxes on them. But Payroll Relief is a payroll program for payroll clients. Okay, Michelle had a good question here. In 2016, there was an issue where some state W-2s were not sent by Payroll Relief. can you touch on that again? Are W-2s sent to the state via payroll? Okay. There is an action item that needs to be done, and that is you need to file the annual reconciliation form for the state. Okay. When you e-file the annual reconciliation for the state, if that state has state W-2s attached to it and those state W-2s are e-fileable, then they will go. Okay. I did have a slide with a table that covered about 28 to 32 states for which this is true. It's also available in the year-end guide. But again, if you would need to e-file, or the form needs to be auto e-filed, either way, because it shows up in the tax form screen, then that will file the W-2s.
Carlos, the question that Amanda brought up was there's a form, the ILW3, and she was saying that.
Okay, again, that's the same topic
really required. Oh, okay.
That's the same topic I'm just talking about. That's the W-2s,
oh, okay.
and the state W-2s attached to it. Yes.
Okay.
What is the difference between archiving and recording? Good question. Okay. When you're recording a form, you're telling Payroll Relief that you filed the form, okay, with the state. Whether you e-filed it or you paper filed it, you're recording it as filed. And therefore, the PDF of that form is now created and saved in Payroll Relief, and it stays there for 3 years. Okay. Archiving means you're taking that PDF of that filed form and you're saving it in a separate place, not in Payroll Relief. Okay, which is the archive data tool that I showed you with the cloud cabinet at the top. You can archive there. That's outside of Payroll Relief. Or you can always archive to your local drive if you want to just copy the PDF into your local machine. Another good question by Debbie. If we send a global canned email for invalid Social Security numbers, will the system automatically filter employers who don't have any? No. When you go into the client notifications tab or screen, okay, there is a column that provides you the number of invalid Social Securities that each employer has. So when you're selecting which employers to send the email to, it's right next to the checkbox that you check to select the employer. You'll see the number. So obviously, if it's 0, you wouldn't check the box. If it's greater than 0, you would, and then and then it will go out. Actually, we just moved that column. As I'm speaking, I don't even think it's out there yet. That column used to be in the firm client administration, one of the screens under firm administration, and we moved it precisely for this reason to the batch client notification screen. Just a note for Michael, you said I would have to rematch screen 60 because I was going too fast. I apologize for that. I did have a lot of material to cover, but again, this webinar was recorded and it will be available tomorrow, right, Roger?
Yep, definitely.
Okay, so it should be available tomorrow for viewing.
Just fast forward to slide 60.
Okay, a question here. For contractor Form 1099, is Payroll Relief now able to correctly place payments for rent in its appropriate box on the form? As I mentioned before, we only support payroll-related
Miscellaneous.
non-employee compensation, which is box 7. We do have an after-the-fact payroll program that will support all the others, but in Payroll Relief, only 1099 miscellaneous, box 7 non-employee compensation is supported. Dave Dover, what forms are required to be filed with red forms, and is there a report that I can run to determine how many I need? Okay, the W-2s, well, you can e-file them, but if you're going to paper file them, we have been approved by the Social Security Administration for our version of the copy A W-2, black and white laser generated form. So that would be acceptable. If you are paper filing the 1099 miscellaneous and 1096C, 1096, sorry, that you would need red copies for. And we do have recommended vendors for the 1099s, red copies. And to answer your question as far as how many you need, if you go to the, I believe it's firm admin payroll activity or client activity, the screen there shows you the number of W-2s and 1099s for each client, and then at the very bottom, you'll have the total. Okay, Brenda Burton Selden, do you mail out W-2s or do I download and mail the clients? We do not mail out W-2s. That is the responsibility of the accountant or the payroll processor in this case, to send them to the employer, and then they can distribute them to their employees if it's all paper. But again, we strongly recommend electronic filing, and also, the employee portal. Releasing them will cut back on not just paper, but also on the task of having to distribute them manually. Alyssa, can I go back and make payroll adjustments to 2017 after I run my first payroll of 2018? Absolutely, yes. You may. You will need to do an additional payroll and date it with a pay date of 2017, or you can use the wage adjustment screens like I covered in the webinar to make any adjustments for 2017. Okay, Jacqueline has a question here that concerns me also. Question is, if a client misses a few payrolls, how can we ensure that we remove those payroll periods so that it does not roll into the new year? The client does not mean to pay for those missed pay periods. If you have a missed pay period, there is, when you go into payroll entry screen, the very first screen with the exception-based grid that you have there, in the upper right-hand corner, there would be a link that says skip current payroll, or it would also, there's a link that says skip to the latest payroll. So skip current payroll will skip one payroll, but that next payroll could also be in the past. Depending on your case, you seem to have several payrolls. So in your case, you would click on the second link, which is to skip all payrolls and bring it up to the current payroll, which is the payroll in the future. Jamie, can you show how to archive in batch processing? Does it show what companies have missing reports, taxes, and or payroll are not archived? Okay, so again, it's a new screen this year. You can archive all your clients. When you go into the screen, you will see a list of the clients and also a column with a number of forms for that client. That's as close as we're going to get, I think, to what you want. So if you know the client, obviously, because it's your client, and you happen to know that they're in 3 states, that automatically should be at least 6 forms, right? Because you have withholding and unemployment, plus the federal. So you know, if the number doesn't make sense, then I would think that we need to look at that more carefully. But again, it does give you the number of forms that will be archived for each particular employer. And then you can verify that information when you go into the archive data application by clicking on the cloud cabinet, on the cloud icon, and going to the forms folder. You can see the forms that were actually archived there. Okay, Jennifer Mora has a question. When you reject an invalid Social Security number, is there a way to push it through in Texas, like Easy Account, or will accounting power never let you force it through? Payroll Relief will let you force it through, but again, keep in mind, like I mentioned before, you know, as far as the Social Security Administration and Internal Revenue Service, the employer most likely will get a notice if that Social Security number is not matching their database. Again, this is why we verify Social Security numbers with the Social Security Administration. And it's an important part of the year-end process and W-2 generation is to make sure that you do not have any failed Social Security numbers. A lot of times, the failure is not really the number, it's maybe the name. You know, you entered Bob instead of Robert. You know, it has to match their Social Security card, which is what is in the Social Security base and the Social Security Administration database. Is the system have Roth IRA? The answer to that is yes. There is a deduction for Roth IRA. Okay, Allison again has a question. Does an electronically filed state version of the W-3 annual reconciliation filing include copies of the electronic detailed W-2s? It does, but again, this is a state-by-state basis. A lot of times there isn't any. I can think of one example off the top of my head. Arizona doesn't even allow for electronic filing of the state W-2s. You have to paper file them. Some other states, for example, Oklahoma, they don't have an annual reconciliation form, so what we did was we added a generic form just as a placeholder so that you can click on e-file and it'll e-file the state W-2s. I will follow up with the accountant responsible for Virginia, but I do believe that Virginia Annual Reconciliation Form VA6 does include the W-2s for the state. So I don't know what happened there, but I will follow up with that accountant. Okay, Danaya has a question similar to a previous one, but I want to add to it, and that is she's saying, say it's 2018 and we do need to still process something in 2017. Wait, my screen just flipped there. Where is it? Okay. Can I still do it? Yes, you can. You can, again, you can go back to an additional payroll, but keep in mind, it's not going to generate live checks. Okay. At this point in time, if you're in 2018 and you're entering an additional payroll for 2017, it is strictly considered an adjustment and a manual check. It will not generate live checks. Live checks are only generated with standard payrolls with a pay date of today or in the future.
Also, Carlos, I think that I could be wrong, but I think that Denaya, what she was kind of implying is it's already 2018. She's trying to run a corrective payroll for 2017. How late into 2018 can she process these corrective payrolls?
February 28, 2018.
Great. Okay, there you go.
But again, most forms are due January 31st, so you would want to probably do it before January 31st.
Do it before then, yeah.
Okay, there's a question here by Julie. Near the beginning of this webinar, you mentioned there is a number that is needed to submit W-2s to the Social Security Administration. Did I hear that right? I came in the webinar at that point. No, but you did trigger something that I did want to mention quickly for those of you that are still with us. Box 9 verification code seems to be a big question. Just for your information, Payroll Relief, Accountantsworld did try to get on board with the IRS pilot program, but unfortunately we were not accepted at the time. But we were told that we are in the next batch of payroll bureaus to be added to the program. Okay, so for 2017 W-2s, Payroll Relief will not print a verification code in box 9. That's the only thing I can think of that you need a number, and actually only if it's in box 9 would you be required to enter it in your tax preparation software. Okay, I don't know. Did I miss any questions, Roger? Do you have any others?
I just muted myself for a second.
Frederick Hoffman has a question. Can you go back and archive previously filed payrolls and returns? You can, yes, especially with the new feature that we have for archiving quarterly forms. That screen will allow you to select a particular quarter in the past and archive the forms for that quarter. So yes, you can still archive in the past. Elisha has a question. Can I electronically file W-3s even if I don't electronically file 941s? Yes, you may. Okay, there's a question from Michael. How do we know which employees do not want their W-2 in the portal? We will then have to email password protected or deliver printed copies of W-2s. How do we know which employees gets which? The fact that the employee has consented is tracked, and when you release W-2s to the employee portal, it will release it only for those employees that have consented.
And automatically, when you print, I'll only print those that did not give consent.
Carl has a question. Where can I find the federal? I don't know why this screen keeps flickering. Oh, I lost it.
Okay.
Where can I find federal reporting requirements for federal tax deposits based on amount of payroll? You can find that in Circular E or Publication 15 of the IRS. Or I can briefly tell you right now, if the look-back liability is less than $50,000, then the employer is a monthly depositor. If it's greater than $50,000, they are a semi-weekly. If they are a new employer that do not have a look-back because they're new, they automatically are monthly tax depositors. But again, you can find this in Publication 15 or Circular E of the IRS. Zanaya has a question that I can elaborate on now. The question is, if the screen would stop flickering. Not sure. Okay, here it is. Not sure if you can see the other question. But for FUTA credit reduction, Carlos mentioned that it would be automatically scheduled by Payroll Relief. Will the amount and debit date appear on the dashboard, or so we can warn our clients? Absolutely. What we do is we run a process for those California employers that have the FUTA credit reduction, and if the FUTA credit reduction plus any outstanding FUTA liability is greater than $500, the system will schedule a pending payment, like any other pending payment, with a due date of January 16th, which means it would be debited on January 9th from the employer's bank account, paid on the 16th, and then Form 940 can subsequently be either auto e-filed or e-filed with a zero balance due, or a balance due less than 500. Okay, the key there is 500 because the IRS will not allow you to e-file a 940 with a balance due greater than 500. And in some cases, the FUTA credit reduction will make that happen. That's why we schedule a pending payment to get rid of it and have a zero balance due on the form. So again, January 16th, it will show up on the pending payment screen like any other tax, and it will be debited on January 9th. Good question on the look back while we're speaking of that, okay? If you're a 941 quarterly filer, the look back is, again, July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017 for 2018. If you're an annual filer, like Form 943 or 944, that look back is the previous year. So for 2018, the look back would be the liability from 2016, sorry, not the previous year, the previous second year. So for 2018, it will be the annual liability for 2016.
Carlos, when we do the analysis for the look back period, are we looking at the 943s also? Or just 941s?
We're looking at the 941s.
Okay. There you go, Rachel.
Although I'll double check that because I think I think I had a request to put in annual forms in the look back. So I think it still shows the quarterlies, but then the quarterlies don't match. I got to look at that.
Well,
I'll get back to
her 43. I think she's asking about the 43 because of the agriculture.
I know what she's asking about. Yes, the 43
Yeah.
she's asking about, and I'll have to research that and get back to her.
Okay, Rachel, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, Aurora, yes, I need to clarify that. I did say that, the February 28th date, to be able to run payrolls in 2017 is from the old days. We really didn't change it to January 31st. But if you happen to do that, or if you happen to have filed the form, because as I mentioned in the webinar, whichever comes first, the system will prompt you that you are processing a payroll for a period, in this case, year 2017, for which compliant forms have been already filed, in which case you would need to file amended returns, which Payroll Relief currently does not support. Okay, but again, if you have that situation, the system will warn you and that you have to do amended returns outside of Payroll Relief. So again, by all means, what's important is really to get all this information now, to process the W-2s now, so that you can avoid any oversights and have to deal with this after the January 31st deadline.
Carlos, it's been so many questions. I don't know. Did we answer Danaya's question about the FUTA credit reduction?
Yes.
As far as it being automatic. Oh, we did. Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay, somebody's inquiring about after-the-fact payroll. With after-the-fact payroll, it's a program that's designed for accountants whose clients come in at the end, after the fact, as this name implies, and tell you, okay, this is how much I pay my employees, can you generate the compliance forms? So basically, the program allows you to enter information that the clients have given you in order, and then it generates the applicable compliance forms. So it's, if you want to look at it in a different way, it's a compliance program, compliance module. It does cover the W-2s, W-2Cs. You can override W-2s. It covers 6 or 7 different types of 1099s. And it does support e-file of W-2s and 1099s. Okay, Ardella has a question, and I believe there was a misunderstanding. Will the system electronically file W-2s automatically when the first 2018 payroll is processed? Absolutely not. We don't know if you're finished yet. We've been discussing in this forum, there could be adjustments that need to be made. We need to enter fringe benefits. So no, we do not automatically e-file the W-2s. That's something that you would be doing once everything's done for the year.
Thomas wants to know if we can do a CSV file upload for the payroll. I would assume he means prior payroll uploads, and the answer to that would be yes, right?
Yes. Yes, you can upload payrolls from an Excel spreadsheet into after-the-fact payroll. If you have, Amal has a question. If you have done any amended returns, there's really no method of updating the information in Payroll Relief. Again, I take that back. You can enter the information in Payroll Relief, but then you'll get the pop-up that I mentioned before that, forms for this, some forms have already been filed for this period for which you're entering a payroll, but you can still enter the payroll, maybe perhaps for report purposes, but not any more generation of forms since they have already been filed.
And it would be the 941X, not the C. Carlos, Sharon from actually the beautiful island of Hawaii is asking us a question. Hi, Sharon. Printed employee copies of the W-2 is a two-sided. It's not duplex, right?
No, it's not duplex.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
No,
the Payroll Relief supports the 4-up form.
Mm-hmm.
And we also support the pressure sealed for those employers that have a lot of employees and choose to use the pressure sealed W-2s 4-up. I don't know if Rachel's still with us, but I did just check the program, and it doesn't look like the look-back period is including the 943s. But I will definitely work on that because that's something that, again, it's been on my list to do. Maybe programmer hasn't gotten to it yet, but I'll follow up on that. Okay, at this time, I'm going to sign off. I don't know if Roger's going to hang around a little bit longer. Once again, thank you for attending, and best wishes for a happy and prosperous New Year.
Thank you, everybody.